haven't reread many books since adolescence, or certainly not compared to the number of books I've read just once. I suppose that as time goes by and it seems that there are more years behind me than lie ahead, I look at all the books I haven't yet read and desperately want to get to as many of them as possible before I pass away. I may even expire with a half-read book on the bed beside me, like the father of one of my best friends who had the novel he was reading when he died placed in the coffin beside him, just in case God kept him waiting for a while. This, of course, is one of the committed reader's greatest fears, that we should somehow find ourselves stuck somewhere unexpectedly without a book to read. I suppose phones and screens have made that slightly less of an issue, assuming you have a phone charger and a socket to hand. Although speaking as someone who can't read more than a couple of paragraphs on a phone and doesn't like e-readers, I still make sure to carry at least one book with me wherever I go, and sometimes a spare as well, just in case. So what books have I reread? Well, off the top of my head, there's The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, which I still think is the greatest adventure novel ever written. And I've reread any number of Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels, and all of the Jeeves and Wooster adventures of P.G. Wodehouse. But the book I've reread more than any other is Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. One reason is that it was on the school reading list for my final exams, this very copy, in fact, filled with notes and underlinings by my teenage self. So I was forced to become pretty familiar with it to get good grades. But I've returned to it often since then because it's such a compelling book. A love story, a ghost story, a novel of violence and passion, suffused with a sense of the natural world and particularly the landscape of the Yorkshire moors, so beloved of its author. But none of those descriptions do justice to the oddness of Wuthering Heights, because there's no other novel in English like it. I think it's a book that only a young writer could have produced. At one point in the story, the ailing Cathy says that she wishes she were a girl again, half savage and hardy and free. And there's a sense of the author herself speaking through the character, sharing her yearning for a past and a strength that must ultimately be taken from her, just as they're destined to be taken from all of us as we grow older. This was the only novel Emily Brontë ever finished, and was published in 1847, when she was still only 29. She would die of tuberculosis a year later, her body so tiny, so reduced by illness, that her coffin was said to be only 16 inches wide. As a writer, what did I learn from Wuthering Heights? Well, apart from the fact that I'd never write anything as good as it, I learned that a novel doesn't have to be just one thing, but can be any number of books in one. And the more of yourself and your joys and losses that you put into your work, the better it will be. And that's especially true of The Land of Lost Things and The Book of Lost Things, which are filled with my own experiences of the world. But actually the truth is that I'm still learning from Wuthering Heights, and it still has much to teach me, which is why I'll keep returning to it. And if, when I die, someone decides to put a book into my coffin with me, well, Wuthering Heights might not be such a very bad choice.